Deutsche Bank CEO Christian Sewing recently told a financial daily that India is the shining star of the global economy, which is facing a decade of volatility due to the Ukraine war, global inflation, and supply chain disruptions. Apart from Sewing, Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser and JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon have also highlighted India's ability to reap benefits amid rising geopolitical risks, particularly from the recent shift in globalization patterns, which has seen Western companies take their supply chains away from China. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva also appeared bullish about India when she recently said that the country continued to be a bright spot in the global economy, despite global uncertainty and headwinds. At the start of September, HSBC Group Chief Executive Noel Quinn had told a financial channel that India is well positioned to become a major global supplier. He pointed at the new manufacturing plants coming up in India and how the government had created a politically stable environment on the domestic front. Looking beyond economic reforms like the GST as a reason for being bullish about India, he was confident that geopolitics was also at play and driving the readjustment in supply chains. India is more attractive today, but not entirely due to its own economic performance. Gautam Adani perhaps best explained why global CEOs were bullish about India in his keynote address at the recent Forbes Global CEO Conference. The chairman of the Adani Group said that the global turbulence had accelerated India's opportunities. From a political, geostrategic, and market perspective, it had turned India into one of the few relatively bright spots. But he stressed that the term relatively was important, citing the worsening conditions in Europe, the United Kingdom's continuing slide, and China's increasing isolation. Adani also admitted that India was far from perfect, but he expressed his belief that India's real growth has only begun. This readjustment between India and other economies is quite evident. China, the world's economic engine, is set to see its economic output fall behind the rest of Asia for the first time since 1990. This is what the new World Bank forecasts have to say, highlighting the damage done by Beijing's zero-COVID policies and the meltdown in its property market. Meanwhile, Europe is preparing for a winter that will bring with it an energy crisis. The UK is beset by high inflation, which the Bank of England has struggled to moderate. Then there is the cost of living crisis. A few days back, the UK also saw its most dramatic currency crisis in recent history. Towards the end of September, an economist poll revealed that 3 in 5 Americans feel the US is in a recession. That's not to say all's well in India. Prompted by the lower than expected GDP growth in April-June, the RBI has revised the FY23 growth forecast to 7% from 7.2%. The inflation forecast of 6.7% for FY23 has also been retained despite a sharp drop in international crude oil prices. The Finance Ministry recently said that managing inflation and external sector pressures had taken precedence over growth. India's current account deficit in April-June was at $23.9 billion, or 2.8% of GDP. This was much higher than the $13.4 billion, or 1.5% of GDP in January-March 2022. India has been facing upward pressure on its import bill since the beginning of 2022 because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Expenditure on new projects has also slowed down for the second quarter in a row amid higher borrowing costs. According to CMIE data, there were new projects worth a cumulative 3.26 trillion rupees in Q2 FY23, much less than 4.39 trillion rupees in Q1 FY23 and 8.46 trillion rupees in Q4 FY22. Spending on new projects declined 4.4% on a year-on-year basis too, from 3.41 trillion rupees in Q2 FY22. So, why are foreign CEOs still bullish about India?
All global multilateral agencies have given a very good picture in terms of our overall GDP growth. So whether it's 7%, 7.2, 7.4% is immaterial, but at a time when we are talking of a recession in most of the developed economies, just about stable growth in some of the larger emerging markets, I think this very fact that India is growing at around 7% in this particular year, I think that is something which has spurred quite a bit of optimism in terms of global CEOs. Couple this with the fact that if you look at the average corporate performance since last year, I think it has been very, very stable and robust. I think that is what is really adding to this entire sentiment.
Another key question is what needs to be done to translate this bullishness into actual benefits.
See, to a certain extent, I think the bullishness which has been expressed by some of these CEOs is in line with what's happening if I look at corporate India. But if I look at the overall state of the economy and what India's potential was earlier or what potential is right now and how we performed in the past, there still is quite a bit of distance to be gathered. By this, I really mean that we need to make sure that lots of jobs are created, something which is not being done in an effective manner right now. And that normally happens when the economy really grows at an accelerated pace of 7 to 9% on a continuous basis, maybe for a period around 5 years. Now, what we've seen is that the Indian economy has emerged from the aftermath of the lockdown, which was induced on account of COVID. We just about managed to raise our necks last year. We're sort of maintaining it in this particular year. But I think a lot more needs to be done in terms of this particular growth, in terms of being all-encompassing, where it covers all the sectors, and more importantly, creates the requisite jobs, which will finally justify the kind of bullishness which has been expressed by the global CEOs.
In a recent column, analysts Abhishek Anand, Josh Feldman, and Arvind Subramanian share how claims of India being a bright spot stack up. According to them, while the economy is out of the ICU, its health remains fragile. They point out that in terms of GDP, the economy is just 3.8% larger than it was 3 years ago. They argue that while sustained rapid growth can be achieved, the country's macro stance must be strengthened first. While positive sentiments from global CEOs are welcome, as Anand, Feldman, and Subramanian argue, perhaps caution, even some concern, is the need of the hour.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views, and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and LinkedIn.